Okay, there's our little Viking miniature. I'm ready to bake them up so we can work on them some more. And following the super sculpty fine instructions, we do 275 degrees, 15 minutes per quarter inch. And he's about a ½ inch thick, so I'm going to do it for about half an hour and see how it is. So let's put him right in the oven there. There you go. I don't know if you can see that. There he is. So we're going to let him bake for a while until it hardens up and then. Okay, our miniatures come out of the oven, and he looks pretty good. Now I have some detail work to do, and I've made this so he can come out of his stand for now. But the thing about him now is that he's hardened. That's the beauty of Super Sculpey. So now you can actually use a variety of tools. Like I have this file, microfiles. You can use microfiles, work better. You can use your sandpaper tortilla to sand it, and you can do more shaping and work on it. Like this handle needs some work, and then there's a little bit of detail work I need to do. I'm not going to show you any of that. All of this now, I'm going to do a little of the detail work and finish that off, and then I'm going to show you how I paint it, and that'll be the end of this portion of the tutorial, which is the 3-inch miniature. From here it moves on. We move on to the very challenging 1-inch miniatures, and that's going to be a lot of fun. But if you've been following along the tutorials and you started with the 6-inch and you've worked your way down to the 3 inches, you've gotten some practice, and now you're ready to do the really small ones. You've got some of the skills, so that's important. So I am going to work on this guy some more, and I'm not going to show you a full tutorial on how to paint it. I already have a video tutorial and a web-based tutorial on how to paint miniatures that are very extensive. So if you want a video on painting miniatures, I have a great one. Just look through my playlists and my videos. And also on my website, I've got a very extensive a very extensive web-based video with lots of pictures and all kinds of tips and hints on how to paint miniatures. But I am going to to finish off this miniature, I'm going to cover a few of the finer points. The first thing you always do before you paint a miniature is you clean it. Clean off any excess stuff. If you've filed it, if you've made it yourself, there's going to be dust on it and whatnot. And then the second thing you do, the first painting you do, is the priming. So now we're going to prime this miniature with a primer, a white primer. And primer is important because it will help the miniature take color and maintain its color. So you don't want to just go ahead and start painting it. You can, but it's much better if you prime it. It'll last longer. It'll maintain its colors more vibrant. And there's two types of primers that are used most of the time: a white primer and a gray primer. For this miniature is 3 inches, so it's pretty big. So white primer is fine, but I recommend if you're doing 1-inch miniatures, 25mm or 28mm, that you use the gray primer. It gives a little bit more contrast and will help you when you're painting it. Okay, this little guy is primed and ready to go. It's covered it all with the primer paint and made it nice and thin and nice and even. And when you paint it, when you prime it, make sure you try not to let the primer, cover up the details. So if you get a nice thin coat, the details won't be covered up, because that primer or any paint can fill in the details and kind of go over them, and you lose some detail. So always a nice thin coat. So like I said, this isn't a painting tutorial, but I want to give you some quick tips. I'm going to give you some neat tips that you can use when you're painting. I'm starting this guy here. I'm going to paint the flesh of his neck and his face, and I'm going to leave his beard alone. I'll get to that later. But when you're painting, try to do all the inside and the difficult surfaces first. Like inside here is going to be a challenge. Inside his neck. And although I've made this one so it's not too hard, but some of the inside spots are a little tricky. And you follow the same process for painting as you followed for making him. So you start from the inside and you work your way out. So you do his body first, and then the outer, then his the underneath layer of clothes, and then finally the outer layer of clothes. So I would do his legs, I would do his leather, I would do his chainmail, and then I would do his belt, and then I would do his buckle. Okay, as you can see, this miniature is just about done. I'm just about done painting it. A little bit of touch up to do, but I want to get this tutorial done. I want to show you two quick techniques that I use when painting miniatures, and you can see these on my website. One of them is called washing, and washing works really well with armor. Now this chainmail is already dry, but watch this. I'm going to put some black paint on there, right? And then just throw some black paint on there, thick. Wash off your brush, and then with a wet brush, wash it like that. Now what happens is, see how the black settles in the cracks, so it makes your armor all of a sudden become very noticeable. See it? See how that runs in the cracks like that? It's a beautiful thing. Okay, I've got the detail work done, and I've got the washing pretty much done on the chainmail. Now and I also did his helmet. You can see his helmet. Now I want to show you highlighting. And the thing about highlighting is that, let's say we take the figure's legs here, and the musculature sticks out, how the musculature has different bounces on it. What I've done is I've taken some of that flesh-colored paint, the exact same paint that I painted his legs, and I mixed it with white. So now we have a different shade of that flesh-colored paint, and we can use that to do some highlighting. And that'll bring out the various muscle features. That's called highlighting, but highlighting comes in two different ways. You can either lighten the pigment or darken the pigment, and that's important because I'll show you. I'm going to take some flesh color and I'm going to add some black to it, darkened up a little bit. So now we can use this generally on the undersections like this. See, that's a little too much black there. So you got to get a feel for the paints and how they mix, so you can get it right. But let me see if I get this better. That's a little better. So the underneath sections are darker of the same color. And that's generally how you do it. I'm going to have to touch this up. Indents and impressions are often darker where it goes in. But see this high point of the muscle right there, that should be light because light is shining on it. And then these parts underneath the kneecaps here could be darker. See that? Okay, this miniature is all done. I just spray painted it with a clear matte fixative, so it's wet. When it dries, it'll have less luster to it, less shine to it. But let me see. I sanded down the base, painted it, put a little bit of texture on it. You can see I can put a little name tag on there for him, and there's the guy. So this is the end of part 10 of the Sculpting Fantasy Miniatures tutorial. In part 11, we're moving on to the 1-inch miniatures, which is very challenging, and we're going to be using a product called Procreate. Thing about Procreate is you only have a certain amount of time to work with it, so you have to be quick. So thanks for watching. Plenty more stuff, and I have complete tutorials on miniatures, dioramas, painting miniatures, sculpting miniatures on my website at stormthecastle.com. Thank you.